Hey there, and welcome to YAS, a stripper podcast. On this podcast, we'll discuss how classifying each other as people and workers is dangerous to society and marginalized groups of people. We'll also talk about the climate in and outside of the strip clubs and all of the amazing things that strippers do. And of course, we'll talk about all of the things in between. I'm your queen, A.M. Davies, and this is YAS, a stripper podcast. Hello and welcome to Yes, a Stripper podcast. Still operating under COVID-19 from our homes, not in a studio still. Anyway, wondering how long that's going to go on for. So, here's a thought. There was this time I was having this conversation with a white male one day, and they're typically some of the most absent-minded and privileged thinkers that there are. And, we were talking about what happened in a strip club one day and after hours. And he was like, and it was really crazy. It was a really gnarly story. It was very crazy. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening. And he's like, well, what do you expect? It's like a strip club. Like, that's just how it is. And my response to him was, it doesn't have to be that way. Just because that's your vision or society's vision of what a strip club is or those types of places are, doesn't mean that it has to maintain that same abusive cycle. And this is something, that what really irked me about it is that it was sort of the mentality of like, well, whatever, that's the way it is and it's broken and it's fucked up and that's just how it'll always be. History never changed with that, would have never changed with that narrative. We wouldn't have had people fighting for their rights and getting their rights if they believed that type of narrative. And so I disagree with that mentality. Well, that's the way things are, and so that's the way it'll be. No, I believe in dreaming up what you want your future and what you want your reality to be, and then turning it into that thing and making change and making a true difference in the world. And our guest that's with us right now, Daphne, is one of those people. You are someone. Hi.
Hi.
I just admire your work so much because you're somebody who's like, no, like, fuck the way it is. I'm going to make it the way I've always dreamt of. And so I'm sorry, I'm emotional. I'm kind of on my period today. Not kind of, really, really am. And I just admire your work so much, and that you're like making a true difference by not allowing the standard remain the standard. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for that intro. I mean, it's really, I don't know, especially in these weird times that we're at right now.
Yeah.
We're stuck with our own like self-talk, and so
Yeah.
it's nice, honestly, to hear sometimes what other people's perspectives on things, as opposed to that,
Yeah.
that little voice that we have for ourselves. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it could be totally scary. My mom sent me this really beautiful quote by Machiavelli about, I want to find it, about people who practice reform, like people like you and people like me, quite honestly, right? Um, I think I just found it. Here it is. It must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things. For the reformer has enemies in all those who profit by the old order, and only lukewarm defenders in all those who would profit by the new order. This lukewarmness arising partly from the incredulity of mankind, who does not truly believe in anything new until they actually have experience of it. And I just love that. And I feel like, because a lot of times I'm really uncertain about the reform that I'm trying to enact, and like the sort of wave of doubt.
That imposter. Uh,
Imposter syndrome, yeah. Like, am I doing this right? Should I be doing this? Yeah.
Am I the right person to be doing this? Like, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So let's give everyone a little context and background of who you are and what you're doing. First of all, do you identify as a stripper?
I Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I've been doing it for like a short amount of time, but I still consider myself a baby stripper, if anything.
Nice. Wonderful. So you have a show that you put on. Can you tell
Mhm.
our audience about your work and about that show?
Yeah, so I throw this night out here in LA called Jolene, and the whole purpose of it was sort of arose because I was dancing. I found a place to dance at, um, and you know, after having gone to different strip clubs and have wanting to be inspired and always wanting to have danced, and found a place for trans women. It was a trans women only lineup, but it was just kind of a weird, grungy,
Mm,
exploitative like sort of environment. So I was like,
yeah.
I want something that's more fun, something that like celebrates the dancers, something that
Yeah.
um, sort of takes that fetishy aspect out of the dancers and out of the being surrounding like trans women
Yeah.
uh, and so I just kind of, I don't know. At first, it was just like me talking about it a lot, like I want a better place, and then it was like I'm gonna make a better place, and then I just started producing my event, Jolene,
Mhm.
at Cheetahs originally, because that's where I started dancing. Um, and yeah, and I just wanted a place where it didn't matter, whether you identified as trans or cis, women are women,
Yeah.
women, cis women are women. And so I just wanted to create that safe space and environment that I was able to find in different areas. And sort of also to just bring that, there's so much like apprehension I feel. That happens between cis and trans women sometimes. So I just kind of wanted to bring that together and be like, hey, like we're all dealing with the same shit. We're all dealing with this fucking patriarchy. Let's work
Yeah.
together. And so
Yeah.
that's that's how it came along.
Yeah. I have so many questions. Yeah, how you say we're all dealing with the patriarchy and misogyny.
Mhm.
So I ask these because I need to be educated and we need to educate others, but obviously you experience the misogyny and the patriarchy part of that. Do you think it's the same and different as same and or different than cis women of
I
what trans people go through?
I think there's definitely um it's like, there's like it's sort of like those Venn diagrams where it's like the different circles and things. There's certain things that I feel like trans women experience that cis women don't experience, versus there's some things that cis women experience versus what trans
Sure.
women. There's a huge that stuff doesn't matter because at the end of the day, there's so many like overlying things in that middle circle that we both have to overlap and deal with. I mean,
Yeah.
something like that, specifically from my own experience speaking as a trans woman is like, a lot of the things you deal with is like the whole fetishization that surrounds like a lot of trans women when it comes to, you know, any environment involving like sex or being like adult oriented, Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, what woman isn't fetishized at one point or another for
Sure,
one thing or
totally.
another?
Yeah, I mean, in the '80s, it was like blonde women.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like
you know,
super blonde.
I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, so, I mean, again, that's just one thing that it's like, oh yeah, it can be seen as different, but it's like, no, but it's still similarity. Like, we all still deal with these same underlying issues,
yeah.
uh, so
It's so interesting. I love that you said Venn diagram. I still need to make a Venn diagram that I've been talking about for the last 3 months, and so I might call on you and ask you for you to make a Venn diagram so that we can share it along with your podcast.
yeah.
Because yeah, it's just unfortunate that there's so much misinformation in general about the way people choose to live. And being like me growing up as a sex worker, and I say growing up because I didn't fully feel like an adult until I was 30.
Yeah.
I felt like a child until then, and sometimes still do. Um, but I felt a lot of discrimination, and I also am in a place of privilege, and so do you mind, so I didn't there's people who have experienced more of it, is my point. And so can you speak on that at all, at like what, if how that helped shape you to the person you are today, like dealing with a certain level of discrimination, being not only a sex worker but a trans woman as well? Like what's that like?
Um, I mean, there's days where it's like really hard and like
Mhm.
all the shit gets to you, and all I want to do is just lie in bed and not move from my bed and literally eat, Oreos dipped in speculoos butter.
Speculoos
But
butter? Hmm.
um, it's really good from Trader Joe's.
Okay, got
Um,
it.
but at the end of the day, like, something that I had to like really reevaluate with myself is like either I can, allow these anxieties, manifest and turn into something where it's just like into paranoia where I don't achieve anything, or I can still just take a breath and just be a little bit more fearless and just go about my day like every other person does. And, just what's more rewarding, but like
Yeah.
also being able to allow myself to have those days where it's like I feel that like an overwhelming sadness, or
Yeah.
just to give myself myself a moment to process all of that, because
Yeah.
sometimes going out you're just on like high anxiety
Mm,
and like on high alert because it's like you just go out and you're just like, oh god, I feel cocky, I feel like someone's gonna say something, you
right.
know but at the end of the day you just kind of have to be like, just suck it up and then
Yeah.
go about your day and live your life and don't allow your fears to like, overtake you, I guess. But
Right.
then they'll have those days to process being on high alert all the time.
Yeah. Do you feel like through like the development of Jolene and your show that you've created sort of like a community around that?